Look at that. Steamy brown and white rice just for you. I know sometimes you just need some rice to make your soul feel so, so wonderful. Okay, let's be honest. Sometimes you're so hangry and you just want a good bowl of rice. Look at that, simple and perfect. And you pick it up and it goes in your mouth. Yum, into your mouth. And look at that. That is a bowl of super, super good for you protein with a variety of beans and brown rice and white rice. It's a meal on itself. And I just want to show you, all you need is a piece of kim. And look, oh, come to mommy, look at that. Look at that. You could almost taste every piece of rice in your mouth because it's slightly still a little chewy. That's the way Korean rice is. It's not flat and dry and mushy. And this is really ideal for anyone who's looking to sort of add more protein in their lives other than meat. So this is really great for vegetarians. And sometimes you just want to go back to your childhood and have rice with just some soy sauce and just a tiny bit of sesame oil. Look at that. Oh, I wish you could smell this. And it's just simple and so comforting. Look at that. It's just soy sauce with some sesame oil in your mouth, and all your hangry monsters will disappear and you'll be happy for a while. Yum. Hi everyone, this is Helen from Modern Pepper. I am so excited that you're joining me today because today we'll be making Korean rice. And I know for me, Korean rice is one of my all-time favorite foods that I must have, or else sometimes it makes me hangry.
Sometimes it makes me hangry.
And I know there's many of you that feel the same way. Sometimes you just need to have a nice bowl of Korean rice. So this video is really ideal for someone who's new to Korean food that want to learn about how to make Korean rice, because again, without Korean rice, all those favorite Korean entrees wouldn't be able to sort of stand on its own. Today's video will go over the basics of making Korean rice and also the other components of Korean rice where we add brown rice and variety of beans and different grains to just take your rice to another level of having that perfect balance of, starch and protein. So again, this is also really great for those who are vegetarian, and I know a lot of my friends recently have converted to being vegetarians, and I love my vegetarian friends, but sometimes they get a little hangry, and I think when they eat a good amount of protein with satisfying carbs such as rice, I think it would just make them a lot healthier and a bit more energetic and a bit more friendlier to their friends. Anyway, just kidding. So anyway, so let's get started. Hi, so let's start with shopping. And I mean shopping for shoes and handbags. Just kidding, just kidding. Okay, so let's talk about what to buy when you're at the Korean grocery store. Certainly for me, and I'm a Korean American, I grew up eating Korean food every day almost. And I walk into a supermarket and it's like there's a huge aisle with so many choices to make, and you're just kind of like puzzled, what do I buy? What you want to look for is extra fancy. It has to say extra fancy because Korean people are very, very fancy. That's why it's extra fancy. I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding. We're not fancy at all. We're just very humble, and some of us are trying to be very fancy. But anyway, so look for the packaging that says extra fancy. You also want to look for a label that says new crop. Now, there are going to be other packages that are missing the new crop label, but it will still say extra fancy. That's fine too. It's just, the ones that are labeled new crop tend to be a little bit more in price, but it's just a personal preference. I think new crop tastes slightly better, but yeah, that's all you need to look for. And there's tons and tons of brand. I tend to kind of stick with CJ, and no, they're not sponsoring me or anything like that, although they should. But yeah, this is my go-to rice, and it's great. The other rice to look for is Korean. Oh, this is heavy. This is Korean brown rice. It's called hyunmi. And same thing, you want to look for a label that says, extra fancy, and that says brown rice and new crop again. Now, both the Korean and the brown rice, they also have ones that are called sweet white rice and sweet brown rice. You want to stay away from those sweet rices because they are used for making duck, which is basically Korean pasta. And Korean pasta could be used for savory dishes as well as for desserts. And it's a big tradition in Korea to make duck for big celebrations. So anyway, stay away from anything that says sweet rice. Just stick with white rice or brown rice that says extra fancy new crop. Now, you can also enhance the nutritional value of your Korean rice by adding a variety of beans. Now, any Korean supermarket you go to, there's going to be a whole section of beans, and some of them come with like 3 dozen mixture of beans, and then you could pick and choose the ones you like. For beans, you certainly don't have to go to a Korean market. I mean, Whole Foods is probably a good place to go where they have, all different kinds of beans, dried beans, and you could just buy it in small amounts and try it out. So pick the beans you like, add them, and, you could also add different grains to your rice. I like to add millet. These are like tiny little beads, and it just adds a little different layer of texture. It's very delicious. I like it. And then you could, of course, add barley. And, barley is, as everyone knows, and if you don't know, Google it. I mean, it's very nutritious. It's so high in fiber. And you could certainly add this too, okay? So the only thing that I would emphasize is if you start adding beans to your rice when you cook, you have to add a pinch or 2 of salt. Otherwise, if there's no salt in it, it creates this funk of water and beans, and who wants to have funky smelling rice? So you always want to add a little bit of salt to your beans when you're making your rice. Hi everyone, it's me, I'm back, and you're wondering why is she coming out of a clay pot? So this is where I go when my children absolutely drive me bonkers. I just go inside a clay pot and just disappear until they're done fighting with each other over one piece of Lego. Anyway, I know many of you could empathize. But anyway, all kidding aside, this is a Korean clay pot. You could find this at any big Korean grocery store. It comes in tiny, tiny little sizes. So if you don't have to go buy a 15-pound bag of rice if you don't consume rice that often in your household. And it also goes big. It goes up to like 4 feet high for these clay pots. So just to give you a brief background on what these clay pots are, they were made thousands and thousands of years ago before refrigeration existed. And in Korea, this is where they would ferment soy sauce. This is where they would also ferment doenjang, which is Korean miso, where they would also ferment gochujang, which is Korean red pepper paste, which is a cousin of miso, but it's just spicy. And certainly for kimchi. Yeah, kimchi back then, they would dig a hole, and we have Korean Americans, we have so many jokes around digging a hole in your backyard. But anyway, you dig a hole in the backyard deep enough so that your clay pot is resting about to this level. And after you make your kimchi, this is where you store it. And you know, that's how for many years until refrigeration came along that Koreans used to preserve and make kimchi, because kimchi is not something that traditionally you make on a ongoing basis. You usually make it, you know, once a year, twice a year, and you store it and you put it away in a big clay pot. So for me, I like to store my rice in here. I know there are some fancy plastic containers that you can find at Korean supermarkets where you can store your rice, and you press a button and it dispenses a small little amount of rice. But for me, you know, and from what I learned from my grandma and her sisters, is the longest way to sort of preserve and keep your rice, because back in the olden days you would just store your rice. You wouldn't harvest rice every month. So once you harvest it, you want to store it in an area where it would stay fresh. So my grandma always told me that you want to make sure the rice is breathing in terms of that it's exposed to air, so it circulates, but you also want to store your rice in a cool, dry place. And she always recommended using a clay, this Korean clay pot. And this is actually called hangari. And I'll have all this information on my blog, which is, you can go to my website. And so this size is big enough for me to put one bag of brown rice that's 15 pounds and another bag of white rice that's 15 pounds. Yeah. So I like to mix half of white rice and half of brown rice. So you could try this, and you know, it comes with a lid. You could buy a lid too, but I put my rice in here and I just tuck it away in my pantry and keep it there, and it's good to go. But the last thing, you don't have to buy this, but the only thing that I would caution is the last thing you want to do is bring your rice home, open it, use it, and then tie it all back up and like keep it all, you know, airtight. That's the last thing you want to do. Then it's not really good for the rice. And I've seen some people do that, and they just leave it there for months, and then they go back to use it, and next thing you know, there's like things growing in there. It's kind of gross. So we want to avoid that. But anyway, that's it for storing rice. Now let's move on to making the rice. Okay, so before we start making our rice, let's just go over some of the options of how to make rice. So the easiest one is get a pot where it's wide enough so you could put your hand in it, and that's how you sort of that's the water measuring method that you need to use, and we'll go over that later. The other is, this is called gamasot, and you know, back in the days, long time ago, this is where they would make rice, but this is a modernized version. It has non-stick coating, so it is super easy to use. And you can find this on Amazon, I'm sure too, but any Korean grocery store would have this. And this is absolutely not necessary, but if you have one, you could also use it to make torso bibimbap and other things too. Now, if you're going to start making brown rice and also beans with your brown rice, and you don't have a pressure cooker, I highly recommend it because it just will save you so much time. Now, if you don't have a pressure cooker, you need to soak your brown rice and your beans overnight. If your kitchen's cool enough, you could just let it just hang out overnight on your kitchen counter. If you have a hot kitchen, I would put it in your refrigerator and let it soak overnight. Otherwise, if you don't soak it and you try to cook it without a pressure cooker on a stovetop, your rice and your beans will still come out very hard, and it just, you know, it won't have that nice soft texture. Now, if you can indulge and make an investment because you live in a household where you eat lots and lots of... Oh my gosh, she just scolded me. So this is... She just scolded me again. Anyway, this is an electric pressure cooker designed specifically to make rice. Okay, she just yelled at me saying that because I didn't follow her command within her time frame that she's going to stop. But anyway, yes, this talks, isn't it amazing? This comes in different sizes. So this is medium. There's a small one for smaller household, and if you don't need to make a lot of rice all at once, so you could get that. And I won't do a full review on this today, maybe sometime later, but this is relatively easy. It has a measuring level, and you know, it's really dummy proof. And it also has this function where if you're in a hurry and you need to make rice super fast, there's a turbo button that makes rice in less than like 8 minutes. And that's also for brown rice and brown rice with beans. So this is about $450. I know it's kind of expensive, but it is I love this particular brand, and there's tons of other brands and I've used them before, but this one is like the Maytag refrigerator. It just lasts forever. And I had this for 5 years, no problem whatsoever. And this is always on in my household because I always have to have rice ready because I have 3 boys and they're always hungry. So, and if you buy from a big supermarket that's been around and if something goes wrong with it, they will take it and send it to their a service center in Southern California and fix it all up for a small fee and send it back. So you could think about it, and I will eventually do a complete review of Cuckoo's electric pressure cooker later on. Okay, so now we are going to go to washing the rice. Okay, so let's move on. Now on to washing our rice. So this is 4 cups of rice. Half is white rice and half is brown rice. And now, hi, I'm still here. It's me. Okay, so I know many of you think, oh my God, washing rice is so much work, but it's not. Look, so all you have to do is, you don't want to squeeze the rice or crunch it or try to break it. Just be gentle. You just spin it around like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you just pour the excess water out. And then you add more water. And then so you just want to use regular tap water. You do not want to use warm water. Just regular cold water is good. And you turn it off and same thing. And so you want to do this 4 times, 4 to 5 times, and you don't want to do more than that because you don't want to actually wind up washing away the nutritional value. So repeat the process. You know, for me, I learned how to make Korean rice from my grandmother, and you know, it's like as I age every year, I think about a lot of things. And there's a Korean saying, 살아계셨을 때 더 잘해드릴걸, which in translation means, I regret not being as nice to the person that passed away. And for me, that's my grandmother. I mean, she taught me a lot of things, but you know, something as basic as Korean rice, I learned from her. And yeah, I regret not teasing her more. I regret not going to her more to bitch and moan about life. I regret not having more meals with her. I regret a lot of things, and I miss her, you know. And I know we all have grandparents like that we miss. And if yours happens to be still around, you know, do it before you regret it, right? Anyway, so this is probably what, my 4th time washing, and that's all you need to wash. So as you will see, it's not as starchy anymore. So basically the goal of washing this is just to wash away excess starch. So you're tasting less of the starchy part of the rice when you cook it. So that's it. Okay, so what you want to do is level out your rice. Just keep it leveled, okay? And how you measure, and this is a major secret, I'm only sharing with you. Just kidding. I learned this from my grandmother and all her sisters. This is how they measure the water level. So you rest your hand on the rice. Don't dig it in and try to, you know, put your hand in there. Just rest it lightly. And, you know, for me, my level of water that I learned from my grandmother is right up to my middle knuckle, okay? That's where she taught me to do it. And I know, I hear you. You're saying, well, your hand size is not the same size as my hand. So, and certainly my grandmother, when she was teaching me this, her hands were definitely smaller than mine. So for her, water level was up to here. So what she did was, what my grandma did was she took a ruler, she measured the water up to the level that was perfect for her. And then she took her hand out and put my hand in there, showed me where that water level landed for me. And for me, it's right here, right below my middle finger knuckle. And then we both kind of decided that, you know, she said she took a ruler and she literally measured it. So I'm just resting the ruler right on top of the rice, and it is at 1/2 inch. Okay? Right at 1/2 inch. So what you can do at home too is add your water up to 1/2 inch and then put your hand in there. So you don't have to take out a ruler every time you wash rice. So 1/2 inch, and figure out where the water stops on your hand. And that could become your permanent water level marker, okay? And I know, I also hear you too. I hear you. I know that there's directions on the rice packaging in terms of how much water to put, and you could try that too. This is just something that I want to share with you that I learned from my grandmother, and I'm pretty confident that the way you measure the water level using your hand is a method that's widely used in all of Korea. So, you know, I could confidently say in Korea, no one's washing their rice and adding cups and measuring the water level using some sort of metric system. So it also depends on your taste buds. Some of my girlfriends, they like their rice really sort of watery and kind of on the soggy side. And then there are other friends where they like their rice a bit more sort of al dente and a bit more dry. So you just have to kind of figure out what kind of rice you want to have. So again, this is just trial and error in terms of finding out what your preference is in terms of how moist you want your rice to be, okay? All right, let's move on. Set your heat level to the highest and just wait for the water to start boiling. Okay, so now the water is boiling. So as soon as you see it bubble over like that, all you need to do is put the lid on it and then bring your heat down to the lowest setting. A little longer, but for 4 cups of rice, I would leave it on low setting for a good 5 to 7 minutes. Just steaming away nicely on its lowest heat setting. The rice is going to taste so yummy. Can't wait. Okay, it has been good 7 to 8 minutes, and just open the lid and take a quick look. Do you hear that sound and sizzle? So I just want to show you, but you shouldn't open it for this long. Just take a quick look. There's no more water. The rice looks fluffy. Now this is the last part, but critical part of making Korean rice. Turn the heat off and let it hang out with the lid closed with no peeking or anything for a good 7 minutes. Okay, so the amount that you had it on at lowest setting, you want to repeat that with the heat off and the lid on, and then we'll come back to it in a little bit. Let's open our rice that we made, that we turned off, and we let it just sit and rest for 7 minutes with no heat and lid on. Okay, now voila, your rice is ready. So this is the last step of making Korean rice, fluffing. You cannot skip this process because without it, and I'm just going to show you how you fluff it. I'm going to keep it at an angle. And you just want to take your rice scooper. And if you don't have a rice scooper, any spatula will do, okay? So you just want to start from one end and bring it to the side and fluff, and fluff, and fluff. So if you don't fluff the rice will continue to cook in the pot, and as it's cooling down, the rice will all stick together, and it will just become a giant mush of rice, and you don't want that. You want your rice to be nice and airy, like so. Oh, that looks really yum. Look at that. Okay, now, many of you are also asking, what is that brown stuff that's on the bottom of the rice that everyone likes? Well, that's called Nurungji, and you can make that by, put your lid back on, turn the heat on to super high for 2 minutes, and it'll just create that golden crust on the bottom that everyone loves. Back in the day when my husband and I were dating in New York, we used to go to this Korean spot called Hanbat, and they were really popular for making stone bowl Japgokbap. So one of the key sort of, points of eating stone bowl bibimbap is to eat the crusty rice at the bottom. And my husband back then was courting me, so he would go and order his, and then kind of scoop up all the Nurungji part and then give it to me. I know, it's so sweet. But now we're married with 3 kids, so now he's like, I don't know, there was no Nurungji. I think the kids ate it. I didn't eat it. Anyway, I know what men will do when they're courting you. So you can make this sizzle and create that golden crust. And it's, any culture that has that makes rice has that part of the golden crust on the bottom. Certain like paella, part of paella that everyone loves is the crunchy rice on the bottom. So this is the same thing for Korean rice. So 2 minutes and you turn it off. If you go beyond that, you might turn black, and that's not what we want. We just want that nice brown color at the bottom. Okay. This is your brown rice with mixed beans, barley, millet, and some white rice. And then, yeah, I know you're asking me, well, what's the right amount of proportion for beans versus rice? And that's really up to you, but I would go anywhere from 3/4 of rice and 1/4 of beans, or certainly if you want less beans, you could add less beans. Now, as I mentioned earlier, when you make Korean rice with beans, you really need to put a couple pinches of salt, not too much. And you ask how much? You have 3 cups of rice with basically a cup of different grains and beans. I would add 1/2 teaspoon, okay? And I just did small little couple of pinches. And again, the more you make this, the more you'll realize how much more you need to add or not add, okay? So let's put our lid on it. Lock your pressure cooker. And again, set it to super high. And let's start waiting for the pressure to build up. And it's starting to build pressure. So mine comes with a level, and it's about halfway up. So at this point, I want to turn down the heat to medium so it maintains this pressure. And we want to keep it at low medium for a good 10 minutes. Probably towards the end of 10 minutes, you probably notice that the pressure has released, and that's okay too. So I'm going to slowly release whatever steam that's left over by releasing my lever. Oh, look at that. Look at that. The second part of cooking is fluffing it up. Just go across. And just fluff it up. So here's a tip for you. After you make your rice, and this is important that you do this right after you just made the rice. Let's say you're in a household that doesn't eat that much, rice. You don't eat that much, and you don't eat it that often, but it is nice to come home and have some rice. So take a piece of saran paper, make sure the rice is just fresh, straight out of the pot, and make sure to cool it down, and just take the portion that you want to sort of freeze, whether it's individual amount or more or less, and just wrap it up. Wrap it up super tight, like so. like that. Okay? And maybe, especially the healthy version of Korean rice is not something that your entire family likes to eat, and maybe it's just for you. So I would make a batch and just put it in saran wrap like this and just wrap it up. Make sure it's super tight like that and just twist it. I know this is a small portion, but you could put more. And again, put it in a sandwich bag after that. So I'm triple wrapping my food so it stays super fresh in the freezer. I mean, the last thing you want to do is put food in there and then you go to eat it and it tastes like a freezer. So the critical part is do it, wrap it and freeze it right after you're done making the rice. You don't want to wrap. And look at that. That is a bowl of super good for you protein with a variety of beans and brown rice and whole white rice. It's a meal on itself. And I just want to show you, all you need is a piece of kim. And look, oh, come to mommy, look at that. Korean rice tends to be extra moist and chewy, and it really is a bowl of just really satisfying carb. And this one particularly has all these different beans, so it's super healthy for you. Look at that. You could almost taste every piece of rice in your mouth because it's slightly still a little chewy. That's the way Korean rice is. It's not flat and dry and mushy. And this is really ideal for anyone who's looking to sort of add more protein in their lives other than meat. So this is really great for vegetarians. And sometimes you just want to go back to your childhood and have rice with just some soy sauce and just a tiny bit of sesame oil. Look at that. Oh, I wish you could smell this. And it's just simple and so comforting. Look at that. It's just soy sauce with some sesame oil in your mouth, and all your hangry monsters will disappear and you'll be happy for a while. Yum. Thanks everyone for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed this mini cooking seminar on how to make Korean rice. And if you enjoyed this video, I would greatly appreciate a thumbs up icon on your social media. And also, why not share this video with your friends and family, especially for those that are looking for a healthier option on having really great carbs with protein. So please do press that share button on your social media. And also, I would love to hear from you. So if you make this dish at home, send a photo and send it to any of my social media platforms that you can find on my website. And I would also love to hear any feedback, or if there are also moments where you empathize with me being a mother or being a Korean American or just living life and enjoying yummy food. And lastly, I would greatly appreciate it if you would subscribe to my YouTube channel and also to my website at modernpepper.com, so that next video that I upload, you will be alerted and we could cook and laugh together. I want to thank you again from the bottom of my heart for watching this mini cooking seminar on Korean rice. I hope you get to enjoy this at home. I hope you get to ward off some hangry monsters that lurk around us every day, and hope you make this at home and enjoy it with your family and friends. Until next time, happy eating from Modern Pepper. Bye now.